As the clock struck midnight on the first day of 2025, Meghan Markle's long-awaited return to Instagram, intended as a sparkling declaration of reinvention and reconnection, collapsed almost instantly into an awkward spectacle that spoke volumes about the widening gap between carefully staged ambition and the unforgiving gaze of public scrutiny, with Prince Harry himself behind the camera, capturing a moment that was meant to charm, but instead invited the very cynicism it had hoped to disarm. I'm glad you've joined me as we begin to unpick the layers of this development, one that reveals far more about the pressures of sustained relevance than any polished press release ever could. Picture the scene on that overcast New Year's morning along the public stretch of beach near their Montecito estate. The waves rolling in with indifferent rhythm, the sand still damp from the tide, and Meghan, dressed head to toe in pristine white as though stepping out of a lifestyle catalog, running barefoot toward the water with what insiders describe as a determined lightness in her step. A well-placed source within the inner circle confides that in the hours leading up to the filming, she had spoken quietly of this as her fresh canvas, a way to signal that after years of stepping back from the platform she once dominated, she was ready once more to control her own narrative, to share glimpses of joy and purpose that might finally quiet the endless questions about stalled projects and mounting bills. Yet beneath that outward poise, one can only imagine the quiet monologue playing in her mind, the hope that this single, wordless clip would spark the momentum her rebranded ventures so desperately needed, the subtle anxiety that any misstep would be seized upon by those who had long grown weary of the Sussex's perpetual comeback tours. Harry, filming from a discreet distance, must have felt the weight of it too, the man who once thrived in the shadows of duty, now reduced to steadying the lens for a production that carried the faint whiff of desperation. His own quiet longing for simpler days, perhaps, flickering unspoken as the camera rolled. What unfolded in those 28 seconds was, on the surface, innocuous enough. She pauses, bends with a practiced grace, traces the digits 2025 into the sand in flowing cursive, turns to flash that familiar bright smile straight into the lens, and then jogs away as if the weight of expectation had never touched her. But almost before the post had settled on the newly activated A Meghan account, its bio boldly proclaiming Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in a move that still raises eyebrows among those who remember the rhetoric of independence, a longtime family acquaintance reveals that the first wave of eagle-eyed observers began to notice the telltale detail, another set of 2025 already etched faintly in the background, proof that this carefree moment had required multiple takes, multiple resets, the kind of calculated repetition that strips away any illusion of spontaneity. A source behind closed doors whispers that the decision to disable comments from the very first upload was not born of confidence, but of a preemptive shield, a recognition that the storm was inevitable, that the same digital spaces she once fled in distress would once again fill with the sharp-edged mockery she had publicly decried for years. The atmosphere shifted palpably within hours. What should have been a gentle ripple of goodwill curdled into a torrent of online dissection, with tabloid headlines and late-night commentary dissecting the clip as emblematic of everything that had begun to grate: performative, rehearsed, tone-deaf in its polished simplicity, while deeper financial strains and professional setbacks loomed in the background. One can almost hear the internal sigh of relief mixed with quiet frustration as the couple retreated behind their Montecito gates that afternoon, the initial thrill of reactivation giving way to the sobering realization that the public appetite for such gestures had soured. Harry, ever the protective partner, perhaps pacing the kitchen with that familiar furrow of concern, weighing the cost of loyalty against the growing isolation their choices had invited, while Meghan, according to those who have observed her closely, grappled with the sting of seeing her carefully chosen symbol of renewal reduced to punchlines about take two and scripted authenticity. The long-term consequences are already unfolding with quiet inevitability. This single video, meant to herald a year of triumphant visibility tied to her lifestyle brand and streaming projects, instead became the opening salvo in a litany of 2025 misfires that have chipped away at whatever residual goodwill remained, reinforcing the narrative of a couple chasing relevance in an arena that now views their every move through a lens of skepticism sharpened by past promises unfulfilled. Money, as ever, sits at the heart of it. The need to drive engagement that might translate into sales or renewed contracts, yet the very act of trying so visibly has only amplified the sense of strain, leaving observers to wonder how many more such resets can be attempted before the well of public patience runs altogether dry. What lingers most hauntingly is the broader atmosphere of quiet exasperation that has settled around the Sussex household in the months since. The pressure of maintaining an image of effortless elevation, while whispers of staff turnover, deal renegotiations, and mounting household costs circulate in the sort of circles that once offered unqualified support. A well-placed source close to palace circles notes that even within the extended family, the episode was observed with a mixture of bemusement and weary recognition, the irony not lost that a gesture designed to project forward momentum instead echoed the very patterns of overpromising and under-delivering that have marked their post-royal journey. For Meghan, the inner monologue must have turned in the days that followed, from hopeful anticipation to a steely resolve to double down. Yet the visible retreat into comment-free territory suggests a deeper acknowledgement that the tide of opinion, like that Montecito surf, moves according to its own unforgiving rhythm. Harry, filming from the sidelines, carries his own unspoken burden. The man who walked away from one institution only to find himself supporting another that demands perpetual reinvention, the quiet toll of which may yet reveal itself in the subtle shifts of their dynamic as the year wears on. In the end, this New Year's vignette stands as more than a simple social media footnote. It encapsulates the delicate, often precarious dance between personal reinvention and public perception, where every smiling exit from frame carries the invisible weight of expectation, financial necessity, and the long shadow of earlier choices. The consequences stretch far beyond likes or follows, touching the very foundations of how the couple now navigates a world that watches not with open arms but with folded ones, waiting to see whether 2025 will deliver the substance their polished gestures have so far only hinted at. And as we watch from a respectful distance, it becomes clear that the real story lies not in the sand that washes away with the next tide, but in the enduring questions it leaves behind. Questions of authenticity, endurance, and the true cost of remaining forever in the spotlight's unforgiving glare.